In the remote, unforgiving expanse of the Iranian plateau, nature is the ultimate eraser of history. The relentless wind, the scorching desert sun, and the violent tectonic shifts have conspired for millions of years to grind human ambition into dust. We are told that the history of this region is well documented. We have mapped the ruins of Persepolis. We have translated the cuneiform tablets of the Elamites. We have cataloged the great rock reliefs of the Sassanid kings at Naqsh-e-Rustam. Modern archaeology operates under the comfortable assumption that there are no massive surprises left on the surface of the Earth. We believe that we have found all the giants, but occasionally the Earth shifts, the dust clears, and the planet reveals a secret so terrifying in its scale and so impossible in its execution that it threatens to shatter the entire foundation of human history. In the early 2000s, a freak, unprecedented weather event struck the desolate southeastern province of Kerman. Massive torrential rains lashed the usually arid mountains, causing devastating flash floods that ripped through the Halil River Valley. The floodwaters scoured away thousands of years of accumulated topsoil and desert sand in a matter of hours. When the waters finally receded, local shepherds and military patrols surveying the damage in the remote, inaccessible upper canyons looked up at a sheer rock face and saw something that froze the blood in their veins. A massive section of the cliff had collapsed in the landslide, shearing away a natural stone facade that had been hiding the mountain's true face for millennia. Behind the fallen rock, carved directly into the hyper-dense, living stone of the mountain, was a gigantic, monolithic relief. It was a carving of unimaginable proportions, easily towering over 150 feet into the air. It dwarfed the famous colossal figures of the ancient world, but it was not just the staggering, skyscraper-like size of the monument that sent immediate shockwaves through the shadow networks of the archaeological community. It was the face of the carving itself. It was not a Persian king. It was not an Islamic conqueror. It did not belong to any known human civilization. And as heavily restricted, clandestine survey teams eventually managed to access the site to take preliminary measurements, they realized a horrifying truth. Whoever built this colossus possessed technology that we, in the 21st century, are only just beginning to understand. Today, we are going to journey into the deepest, most restricted deserts of the Middle East. We are going to examine the impossible engineering, the anomalous geological weathering, and the terrifying extraterrestrial iconography of the giant carving that appeared out of nowhere. A monument that no one can explain, and a message left in stone by a civilization that history has entirely forgotten. To comprehend the absolute impossibility of this giant carving, we must first look at the canvas upon which it was created. The mountains of the Kerman province are not made of soft sandstone or porous limestone. The cliff face where this colossus resides is composed of a massive, solid seam of diorite and granite. On the Mohs scale of mineral hardness, diorite is exceptionally tough. It is the same material the ancient Egyptians used to carve their most enduring, indestructible statues. To carve a 150-foot relief into a sheer diorite cliff face using the accepted tools of antiquity, copper chisels, bronze saws, and pounding stones, is a mathematical and logistical absurdity. If you took an army of 10,000 ancient laborers, suspended them on primitive ropes, and had them pound against that cliff face for a century, they would barely scratch the surface. Furthermore, they would destroy their tools within minutes. Copper and bronze simply cannot cut diorite. They smear against it. Yet the giant carving in Iran does not just scratch the surface. The radar scans and high-resolution photographs smuggled out of the region reveal a level of precision that defies logic. The relief is carved in extreme deep-set profile. The cuts outlining the massive figure penetrate up to 15 feet deep into the solid rock. But it is the nature of these cuts that terrifies material scientists. The inner edges of the trenches are perfectly smooth. There are no chisel marks. There are no uneven, jagged breaks that characterize manual excavation. In fact, preliminary chemical analysis of the rock face suggests a microscopic layer of vitrification, meaning the rock was not chipped away. It was flash melted. The stone was subjected to intense, localized thermal energy that briefly turned the diorite into liquid glass before it resolidified. To achieve this exact effect today, industrial engineers would require massive multi-megawatt thermal lances or highly advanced diamond-tipped wire saws running at incredible speeds, cooled by thousands of gallons of water. How did an ancient, unidentified civilization lug power plants and thermal lasers up a jagged mountain in the Iranian desert? Or, more terrifyingly, did they possess a method of manipulating molecular density that we have not yet discovered? The engineering is impossible, but the iconography of the carving is what truly keeps researchers awake at night. When you look at the great rock reliefs of the Achaemenid Empire, like the Behistun inscription, they are highly legible. They show King Darius holding a bow, stepping on his enemies, surrounded by text that explicitly tells you who he is and what he conquered. Human history is narcissistic. Kings want you to know their names, but the Iranian colossus contains no writing. There is no cuneiform, no hieroglyphs, no ancient Persian script. The figure stands alone in the silence of the stone. It depicts a humanoid entity, but its proportions are deeply unsettling. The skull is elongated, sweeping back into a highly aerodynamic shape that echoes the anomalous Paracus skulls found in South America. The eyes are massive, taking up nearly half the facial structure, angled upward in a distinctly non-human geometry. The entity is wearing what appears to be a seamless, form-fitting garment that covers the neck and extends down to the torso, featuring intricate geometric patterns that resemble a modern circuit board. In its massive, multi-ton hands, the figure is holding two distinct objects. In the right hand, it holds a spherical device surrounded by concentric rings, an object that looks terrifyingly similar to an astrolabe or a gyroscopic map of a planetary system. In the left hand, it grips a cylindrical rod that tapers to a sharp, crystal-like point, pointing directly downward at the Earth. Mainstream anthropologists, the few who have been allowed to view the data, desperately try to categorize it. They argue it is a stylized, mythological depiction of an ancient Elamite weather god. They claim the elongated head is merely a ceremonial headdress, and the objects in its hands are symbolic scepters of agricultural fertility. But independent researchers and ancient astronaut theorists point out a glaring, impossible coincidence. The specific stance of the figure, the elongated skull, and the strange cylindrical rod perfectly mirror the descriptions of the Apkallu found in ancient Sumerian texts. The Apkallu were the 7 sages, the semi-divine, non-human beings who emerged from the sea to teach early humans the arts of civilization, mathematics, and architecture. They were the emissaries of the Anunnaki. Is this giant carving a monument to the actual beings who kick-started human civilization? Did early humans carve this as a desperate tribute to their gods? Or did the gods carve it themselves using technology we can barely fathom, leaving a permanent, indestructible physical photograph of their existence in the bedrock of the planet? To answer that, we have to determine when it was built. And this is where the timeline of human history completely unravels. You cannot carbon date stone. It contains no organic material. However, you can date the weathering patterns on the stone. When geologists analyzed the erosion on the outer edges of the giant carving, they found heavy vertical water fissures running down the face of the colossus. This type of severe water erosion is caused by thousands of years of heavy, continuous rainfall beating against the rock. There is only one problem. The Iranian plateau where this carving sits is a hyper-arid desert. It has been a desert for at least the last 5,000 years. To find a climate model where this specific region of Iran experienced the kind of torrential, continuous rainfall necessary to cause that specific water weathering, you have to go back to the end of the last ice age. You have to go back at least 12,000 years. This places the creation of the giant carving in the exact same impossible chronological window as Gobekli Tepe in Turkey and the Sphinx in Egypt. It suggests that 12 millennia ago, long before the invention of the wheel, long before the first primitive farmer planted a seed in Mesopotamia, a highly advanced, technologically supreme civilization was operating on a global scale. They were carving mountains. They were manipulating igneous rock with thermal precision. And then, something wiped them out. A massive global cataclysm, a comet strike, a solar flare, or a devastating planetary flood shattered their empire, plunging the survivors back into the Stone Age. The mud and the shifting tectonic plates buried their greatest achievements, leaving us with a severe case of collective amnesia. The giant carving in Iran survived because it was too massive to be completely destroyed, and eventually a landslide covered its face, preserving it like a time capsule waiting for the modern era to peel back the curtain. But the most chilling aspect of this discovery is not the carving itself. It is the immediate, heavy-handed reaction of the authorities. Since the initial leaks in the early 2000s, the Iranian government has effectively erased the site from the map. The entire mountain range has been declared a highly restricted, closed military zone. The airspace above it is fiercely guarded by surface-to-air missile batteries. No independent foreign archaeologists are permitted within 50 miles of the valley. The official state narrative is that the area is being used for conventional military testing and that any rumors of giant ancient carvings are Western fabrications designed to encourage illegal antiquity smuggling. But satellite imagery tells a different story. Commercial satellites passing over the coordinates have captured massive logistical operations taking place at the base of the cliff. Temporary, heavily fortified encampments have been erected. Massive scaffolding structures, draped in opaque military netting, have been built up the side of the mountain, completely obscuring the colossus from the sky. What are they doing behind those nets? Are they trying to destroy the carving to maintain the religious and historical status quo? Or are they trying to extract something from it? Some whistleblowers from within the geopolitical intelligence community suggest that the giant carving is not just a statue. It is a marker, a door. If a pre-Ice Age civilization possessed the technology to laser cut a 150-foot figure into solid granite, they would not do it just for decoration. They did it to mark a location of supreme importance, the cylindrical rod held by the giant points directly at the rock floor beneath its feet. What is buried beneath that floor? A subterranean vault? A repository of ancient, lost technology? An intact, functioning machine left behind by the architects of humanity? The global superpowers know that the history we teach our children is a highly sanitized, carefully constructed lie. They know that the Earth is a graveyard of advanced, forgotten civilizations. The race to control these ancient sites is not about preserving history. It is about acquiring the forbidden physics and lost technologies buried within them. The giant carving of Iran stands in the dark, hidden behind military tarpaulins, silently watching the primitive armies of the modern world scramble around its feet. It is a monument to our own ignorance. We look at our smartphones and our satellites, and we think we are gods. But the silent watcher in the Iranian desert proves that we are merely children, playing in the ruins of a much greater, much more terrifying empire. As the climate continues to change and the Earth continues to shift, more of these ancient behemoths will inevitably tear through the dirt and demand to be seen. The truth is rising to the surface. The only question is, when the full scope of our forgotten, extraterrestrial history is finally revealed, will human society be able to survive the shock? What do you think is hiding behind the military scaffolding in the mountains of Iran? Is it simply an ancient piece of art, or is it a massive locked door leading to the greatest technological vault in human history? If you had the power to reveal this carving to the entire world, knowing it would instantly destroy every established religion and history book on the planet, would you do it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. The truth is never given. It must be dug out of the stone. If this journey into the forbidden archaeology of the Middle East made you question everything you know, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We are breaking through the ultimate cover-ups of human history every single week. Click the video on your screen right now to explore the impossible laser-cut megaliths of Pumapunku in Bolivia, and I will see you in the next one. Stay vigilant, and remember, the past is not dead. It is just waiting to be uncovered.